Kelly Hancock. Kelly, last time you interviewed, we talked about you were going to be having to put these rules together for this huge, I mean, giant ESA rollout. Nobody's ever tried to give out $1 billion before or after the ESA's passed in their state legislature. So you've had a huge success because it's like tens of thousands have signed up, and we promised to have you back on when you did it. So you've done it. So tell us about it.
Yeah, it's been a great week, Paul, and good to talk with you again. Appreciate you having us on.
Thank you for being.
Literally, the state of Texas, to no one's surprise, has set a record. So, we're in our third day, and I can give you updated numbers. We're over 62,000 that have signed up for education freedom for the first time in the state of Texas.
Oh, so we're breaking.
We're able to process
Kelly, hold on. We're breaking news here. 62,000. This is awesome.
And that's sign up, right?
62,000.
All right.
That is sign up, but we're processing 75% of those the same day they sign up. And so we are already the third largest program in the nation. And, clearly in the very, very first year. So literally the first day, 42,000 in the very, very first day, which is staggering. And without a hiccup, Paul, we on all this, as you know, I'm an entrepreneur. I started my business from the ground up. We've implemented business-like principles and business speed within the comptroller's office, and we had to get this program up and running. It started September 1 when the legislation, when it went into effect, and literally we had providers signing up in December, and now here it is January, and we have in February, and we have parents and students able to, for the first time in the state of Texas, experience freedom in education to choose the education that's best for your child.
Well,
so we're thrilled with it.
Yeah, and Kelly, this is Kelly Hancock, who was a colleague of mine in the Senate. Kelly, you were still there to vote for the ESA bill, right? When it at least went out the first time or the sixth time.
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
I was going to say, Paul, how many times did we?
I know, I can't even remember.
I mean,
we were passing. I was thinking about this the other day. We were passing tax credit scholarships of $100 million last decade. I know I passed one of those bills out of the Senate, and now
clearly.
I know. And it's been, obviously, the Senate, Lieutenant Governor Patrick, we've been leading on this a long time. Now, this is really good news because you had 42,000 the first day, which is obviously, that's going to be your record day. You've signed up.
That was a record day. The previous record was 32,000 in Tennessee. So, I mean, we didn't just break it. We blew past it.
Now, by screening the sign-up, 75% are already approved, which means effectively they're in the portal and they can shop, right?
Correct. Yeah, they can look at the schools, and we have 1,800 schools, or schools, tutoring services, the elements that were passed that you could qualify for in the legislation, and so 1,800 already. So a good list in pretty much every area. And we're keeping metrics on all this, Paul. We know, for example, that the quickest anyone signed up was roughly 2.5 minutes. 2.5 minutes. That, we're keeping up with the average. So we've created a customer-friendly portal. You can do this on your phone in, less than 10 minutes
right.
if you have everything there.
And Kelly, that's really important because, look, my saying in the Senate, you've heard me say it many times, is what gets measured gets fixed. Now, the good news is what your metrics are telling you is that you're probably not fixing anything. You're fine-tuning it for people so that people know, how to do it better, faster, on their time, which is the right thing to do. So, I mean, when you get a rollout, if they're fastest time is 2.5. What's an average time? 5 minutes, 10 minutes? Pick a number. What?
Well, you got to remember. So some of these have to upload. If there's special needs, and others, we're seeing that it could take 15, 20 minutes. But what's happened on some of those that's skewing that a little bit is we're seeing a number of people. So we had several thousand on the first day that started the process, and we can look at it and see that somebody started the process. They didn't have their ID to prove they were a U.S. citizen, or they didn't have their special ed information that they had there, and you do have to upload your tax return.
Well,
and then they come back in later.
And Kelly, that's important as the special ed guy in the Senate now. That you want those plans uploaded because they get a lot more money, over $30,000, but you have to have that documentation. But look,
correct.
But this is by any measurement, this is a huge success, and now there is a cap on this of 100 at some point, which you're not you're going to be getting there. The question is when, and so that's what the public needs to know. So they need to go ahead and do the work now and get on the portal. Okay, Ben and Eric, who wants to
let me give you the website.
Yeah, go.
Let me give you the website real quick. It's educationfreedom.texas.gov, and it doesn't look like a government website. I'm not a government guy. I didn't go into the agency to let the agency change me. I went into the agency as a business guy, and Governor Abbott wanted me to move at business speed to get this going and implement business principles there. And so it's very customer friendly. We know who the customers are, and we've created a portal and a process that is extremely friendly, extremely convenient, and very similar to what you would find, not in government, what you would find in the business world.
Ben.
Yeah, Controller Ben Strusan, thanks for joining us on the Voice of Texas. I wanted to ask you, the sublimits as the legislation was passed, I know that you just mentioned special ed, and as I recall, there are certain priorities in terms of the allocation, like the special eds or special needs gets sort of priority treatment, and then also, as I recall, income levels below a certain threshold. Are you maxing out against any of those sublimits so far? Are you seeing an allocation of a large percentage of these ESAs going to special needs?
Yeah, great question. And Paul's a numbers guy. I'm a numbers guy. We have $1 billion to spend in this program, so we won't know the numbers until we find out how many are in that $30,000 threshold for special needs, how many are in that $10,474 for our average student, and then how many. Right now, about 20% are homeschool, which is $2,000, and that can supplement that. So we won't know the total numbers, until we see what area that they're in, what they qualify for. And so the good news is the legislature, Paul and I, when we were there, we established the criteria so that it does focus on and it prioritizes low income and special needs. And what we're seeing right now is 75% of those that have applied meet within the criteria the legislature established. And so it's very encouraging. And I've toured the state of Texas to many of these schools. And, in fact, I was in Houston just the other day, a school in Houston where the superintendent there is a superintendent in public. And God just called her to help start this school. She's taking no salary, no income, in order to provide education opportunities in this area. Half the teachers that work there are taking no salary, providing this so that they can provide a low-cost product. Nearly half the students aren't paying a thing.
And Kelly, that's the way to do a startup. If you're trying to get something started, if you got a lower overhead, you're likely, and that's another business principle that they're doing.
Yep.
And Eric.
That was going to be my question. Part of it, how many vendors do you have that, like St. John's is probably out of the question, so I'm not being facetious. I'm saying that's a $35,000 thing. Are there pop-ups? Is that what's happening? The 1,800 vendors you have mentioned that they're there, they've already been there, they just looking for students? And do we audit those?
Yeah, so the program is set up, and the criteria that we had, and we had to deal with schools that we had linked to terrorist organizations that we had to address. We had some that we found were linked to the Chinese Communist Party.
That's the CAR and the Communist Party, Chinese Party, et cetera. Right. And I think Muslim Brotherhood, pick a number. Okay.
Yeah, and we're not going to, if we find they're linked to that, and we're doing the research, then We're not sending taxpayer dollars to those organizations, and so we did that. But the criteria we had to work with was 2 years in accreditation. And so we don't control the accreditation, and so that's why we had to do some additional research, and we had to, address this issue up front so that taxpayer dollars do not go to those types of organizations. But these are existing schools, so they've been around for 2 years to make sure they're, in good standing and accreditation. But what we are hearing because of this program is entrepreneurs looking at starting up and addressing the economic needs within the state and providing new types of opportunities in education. So, people are excited about it, families are excited about it, but entrepreneurs are excited about it as well, looking at ways to provide education in a new way, but they do have to have that accreditation, and they have to be around for that 2-year period.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you will continue to audit them, of course, right? Performance?
Yes, there's an auditing process. In fact,
there's some pretty good metrics. Uncle Paul might have had something to do with that, but go ahead.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, no money will change hands, and so it's very, very secure. We have to, if you're going to be a provider, we have to send you a link, and then that's the only way you get to sign up. And so that's why we've been able to hold off until we thoroughly investigated some of these schools to protect taxpayer dollars. That won't happen till July, and because we're able to process these so quickly, we'll be able to notify parents by April. And the program, you can register, and it's not first come, first served. That's not the way it was designed. Prioritization is based on that low income and special needs, so not first come, first served. And think about it. We're at 62,000, and we have till March 17th.
Yeah, no, it's going to be.
Well, you'll blow through 100,000.
Yeah, no, it's going to be it's going to be subscribed out, and 75% is about the number. I want to say we didn't think it would be ever higher than 80 for those categories. Didn't think it was going to be lower than 2/3 or 70% either. So that's tracking really well. And Kelly, the audit, they've got pretty good audit capability, and one of the advantages of being the last major state to do it is we put all this in the bill. That was my suggestion to Senator Creighton. We got all that stuff in there, and so I'm pretty sure that you've got the fraud tools you need to work on, right, Kelly?
Yeah. We've got all the safeguards you can imagine, and the other thing I did within the first 30 days within that office is signed off on upgrading the financial system of the office, because, Paul, as you know, we needed to upgrade on the financials and technology in that office. And, we've implemented monitoring that before you get in office, you see monitors where you can see how we're doing as a state, how we're doing as an office. And We're doing the same thing with this program. I literally can look at the dashboard, which we've set up, and we set that up in our office, tech stats. They're on our
and everybody can look at the dashboard.
See how we're performing.
No, and Kelly, speaking of which,
absolutely.
You had to move from the Senate out. We had a vacancy. We've had a special election. By any measurement, I think the results were quite a surprise to many people because the Democrat in the race improved his standing dramatically from November. The Republican did not, and the turnout was down for Democrats, but down further for Republicans. So you get a free shot at critique on that, since you're a statewide statewide official, if you want to. Since it's your old district, we have to ask the question.
Yeah, it's very disappointing, Paul, and you're right. When Senate District 9 special election, I won that. Trump won that 4 years ago. In the last presidential, he won that 17 points. I won it with 20. So we were able to, just 4 years ago, we were able to outperform even Trump, getting 20% of that vote. And, when you look at the numbers, we did have 51% Republicans showed up, and 38% were Democrats, and then the independents. And so definitely have to look at it. I'm very, very hopeful in November that we don't lose that. As you know, that Democrats not going to be able to take a single vote between now and then the next opportunity we're going to have in November to make sure we take care of that seat. and make sure we get that back.
Right, because the mathematics.
And what's the geography, real quick?
It's well, he knows it better, but
Yeah,
it's
north of Fort Worth?
It's basically
Yeah,
west and north Tarrant County. Kelly, take it. Okay.
Yeah, right. So we take it is downtown Fort Worth. It's up in the suburbs and goes. It's all along the western line of Tarrant County. It's the northern line of Tarrant County, other than 2 other cities. A lot of rooftops and churches. It is. It's where you want to live. It's family and faith.
Sounds like
it's
a Western Harris
Republican
County,
district.
Yeah.
Right, and Kelly.
Yeah, I mean it's very similar.
Right, but the mathematics of this are kind of well known at this point. Yes, it was a huge downdraft because of a nearly a 16-point loss. I guess the best way to describe it from where you guys were at before. Mathematics of this have already been discussed publicly, but it's probably a 14 to 15% R to D crossover, R to D, and independent votes were lost.
Something peeled off.
Independent votes were lost at 75 to 77%. So there was no good news in these numbers.
Oof, that's 3 out of 4.
Yeah, no kidding. Okay, all right. And so it's a big and Kelly, by any measurement, this is a wake up call for everybody in the state. True.
Oh, we've got to address this in November, no doubt about it. As you know, I'm campaigning as well as running this office and getting the Texas Education Freedom accounts launched. And look, there's plenty for Republicans to run on. We've had a ton of success. Texas is the economic driver of the country because of Republican leadership, and we just got to convey that message and get our voters out.
It's much better to stay positive and talk about positive results. And Kelly, like we promised to have you on because when you did the rollout, and again, the rollout's been a huge success, and that's what we need to be focused on because we don't necessarily, when we have the success, we should claim it. And make sure everybody knows how to use it and do real things for real people. But anyway, so that's the interim comptroller, Kelly Hancock. And Kelly, want to thank you for telling us the good news on your and on your portal, which once again is the educationfreedom.gov site, right?
Educationfreedom.texas.gov.
.texas.
So lots of information there.